Delivering clear, concise, and entertaining content on demand, this is sharpertalkmedia.com. Join the community. Welcome to Higher Up, the podcast designed to help you take your business to a higher level.
Get the latest news and updates on everything human resources.
Unlock the occupational DNA so you can identify, select, develop, and retain top talent.
And now, your host, John Beck.
Our guest today is a longtime entrepreneur in the social sports industry. He is the founder, CEO, and ambassador of Fun at Underdog Sports Leagues, League Lab Software, and Fun Corp Parties and Events. Underdog runs adult co-ed sports leagues in the Seattle and Portland area. League Lab provides legal software to sports and social clubs around the country. Fun Corp puts on friend-building corporate events designed to build social connections between coworkers. Through his experience with the Underdog, League Lab, and Fun Corp, our guest is an expert in the friend-building arena. Welcome to the show, Sean Madden.
Hey, John, thank you for having me. Let's have some fun today.
Absolutely. It's all about fun, isn't it?
It is.
All
it
right.
is a fun.
Tell me a little bit about where are you located, what's going on in the life of Sean Madden. Give us a little personal background of who are we talking to today?
So we are located in sunny Seattle, Washington.
Yeah, sunny Seattle.
It's an inside joke here in Seattle. People don't know it actually is sunny here 317 days a year.
Right.
Small joke. We just pretend it's raining so more people don't move here and the traffic gets too bad.
There you go.
I personally have been in the friend building business for about 18 years, but who's counting? I founded Underdog Sports Leagues, about 18 years ago. So we have these big giant recreational sports leagues in Portland and Seattle in the Pacific Northwest, where we run, kickball leagues, flag football leagues, and we'd always done, corporate events.
Sure.
As part of those leagues, and in about the last 4 years, we just said, hey, can we take this idea? Because once we started running these leagues for 4 or 5 years, we realized we're not actually in the sports league business. We're actually in the friend building business, and a lot of these people were just using the sports, volleyball, flag football, bowling as kind of excuse to basically make new social connections and make new friendships. And so we said, hey, can we take this friend building idea, which we didn't realize we were in the friend building business, can we take it to corporate America and help out companies who may be struggling with their company culture, especially a lot of the higher tech companies who, how shall we say politely, sometimes tend to have a few introverts in the office. I'm an introvert. I'm an introvert too. I'm an introverted CEO. I've been a CEO. So I'm a chronic entrepreneur. 4 different companies I work with. I've got the entrepreneurial bug pretty bad, but I'm an introvert CEO. A lot of these high tech companies in Seattle and Portland, tend to have employees that are shy, programmers, engineers, and they want to have a company culture to take their company to the next level. Right. And they need a little bit of help, especially with the programmers and engineers who aren't necessarily the best at these kind of social situations, so to speak. So,
well, I can tell you, I was talking to my wife this morning, and I was letting her know a little bit about the podcast I had scheduled today, and I brought a topic up of friend building, and she was intrigued by it. She said, I can see it because a lot of my friends that, I would have to really consider leaving this employment, leaving her job, because she has such great relationships with her coworkers. And she's been there a long time, but she's got these great relationships. So that leads us right into friend building. Where is this friend building business going? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so friend building is just really a simple emphasis on running parties and events and activities with a shared activity involved. So you're kind of starting the natural, friendship process. There's basically like 4 main components to kind of making a friend if you kind of dig into the science of it. There's proximity, there's familiarity, and part 1, part 2, part 3 is kind of shared interests, shared experiences, shared background. And that's kind of where the friend building process kind of starts. And so that part 3, that kind of shared experiences, we try and run events and parties that kind of very subtly and simply nudge that process along.
Right.
So take your normal team building event. And again, nothing wrong with team building events, but sometimes there's a lot of pressure or sometimes there's even a lot of what we would call, forced vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
So, go to the cliche of, tell us your deepest secret, or let's have a trust fall is kind of, the cliche when people make fun of team building events. And, and those might be great. They might be great for, every company's different.
Right.
But also, yeah, I've also seen team building events where, you have to build a bicycle together.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to, I've seen them in, on the other side of the water here, where you have to build a canoe in a swimming pool. And then if you don't build the canoe right, you're in a canoe and the canoe sinks.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, man, that is a lot of pressure. Like, it's supposed to be a fun, break from the office and work. And you're building this canoe, and if the canoe isn't right, you're literally going to sink in the pool.
Uh-huh.
So, we try and have it be a much more laid back and much more accessible party, with a focus on, one of the most valuable things we think we can do is to help companies break their silos. And if you have people, you have silos, whether you think you do or you don't. But one of the most valuable things is kind of a simple idea. Can you have people who barely know each other in your company meet for the first time? A great post-survey question we ask for some of our events is, how many meaningful conversations did you have with somebody that you've barely interacted before with at your company? The numbers bear out that that's happening at these parties, because we're kind of slowly nudging the friend building process along.
Right. When we talk about this friend building process, what's the effect on companies, and why should they care about it?
Well, so there's a ton of impacts, but start with the example that your wife talked about. We hear that story about the impact on retention over and over and over again. And so you talk about the idea of a perk versus an experience. And we say, okay, yeah, you should shoot for experiences. But the idea of a perk versus the idea of a friend, your wife's company, I mean, again, they might throw, 401k plans at her and vacation time and bonuses and pay. But the science kind of says that people will work for less pay if they have more friends and their office is more fun. So just from a pure economic standpoint, instead of people, constantly going at you and saying, I'm not making enough, I'm not making this, and take it a step further, that employee that you probably can't afford to lose is probably already thinking about leaving. And again, in Seattle, we have probably one of the more competitive landscapes, maybe in the country, between Amazon, Microsoft, Facebook, Boeing, Starbucks. I mean, they're going toe to toe every day. And that employee who says, I'm going to make more money, it's a better opportunity for me and my family, a lot of times what they're not saying to you is, I'm lonely.
Right.
I don't feel like I'm part of something. I don't feel like I belong here. And if you actually just simply scored their friends across the office, a fascinating idea which we're trying to dig into is, if you did an exit interview with somebody, instead of saying, hey, where did we go wrong? What were the benefits wrong? Was the company culture wrong? Just simply ask them an exit interview, hey, how many good friends did you have here in the office? And I would probably bet you those people that are leaving, who say they're leaving for more money or say they're leaving for a better opportunity, are oftentimes leaving because, like you said, they haven't built up that friendship score and they don't have those social connections. And so it's easier for them to look someplace else.
Yeah. No ties. It's easy to leave when you have no ties and no commitment to individuals.
Yeah.
And it is about people at the end of the day. I mean, brick mortar facilities, Google's foosball tables and pool tables and ping pong tables, that's all fine. But, that's friend building there, grabbing a buddy and going and do a fun activity at work, or grabbing someone and going to do one of these fun building events.
Yeah.
So when we go down, when you have these types of events, a company run event, just a traditional company run event. So here I am looking to put on a nice event for my organization versus doing a fun building event or friend building event. Tell me the difference between those types of, what's the main differences you would see there?
I mean, one really simple difference, which I would encourage, all your listeners and maybe a few, introverted CEOs out there like myself to think about is, the common event, I think, focuses very, very much on, let's be honest, it focuses on the location and booze.
Yeah.
And so you think about the company Christmas party, and the company Christmas party is, let's get a fancy club and a cool DJ and maybe a nice sculpture, and let's just throw booze at the situation, and then it'll be a fun party. And again, like, look, if you're a CEO or a company and you have a summer barbecue and a company Christmas party, like, great. Some companies don't even have that. But I think it's just a missed opportunity. And when booze becomes the center of your event, then Fred building is often lost because people will just kind of end up in their normal silos and their normal cliques and their normal circles. And the executives will hang out together. So the difference between a normal event and a friend building event is we literally try and break those silos on the spot. And yeah, we have beer and booze and we have a good time. But again, there's got to be something else to take the pressure off of those social situations. Otherwise, they would have already had a chance to be friends in the first place, right? So the normal Christmas party, is probably not gonna get it done if there's no shared activity to take that pressure off. The second big idea, again, keep in mind, a simple idea is a lot of times companies think, I believe personally, and we believe, they believe mistakenly that they have to leave the office in order to have fun. So these companies get really, really bogged down in what we would call site location. Hey, we've got to find the perfect club, the perfect restaurant, the perfect space. And we say, if you want to have a culture of fun and a culture of happy employees, let's run the event inside your office. Every major company we see, you've got at least one empty conference room.
Right. We
just ran an event last week, for a very large social media company, and we call it a conference room Olympiad. And it was a small team. We love teams, right? We do about teams, about 20 to 200 people. We don't do events with 4,000 people.
Right.
We love those smaller groups because that's easier to work the friend building process. But you've got some empty space that the cubicles don't extend to. You've got an empty conference room. You've got space in your parking lot. We've run events for companies in their parking lot.
Yeah.
And so the idea that you have to leave the office to have fun, think about what message that sends to your employees and your coworkers. Like, we can't have fun here. If we really want to have fun, we're going to go to a bar, we're going to go to a restaurant, we're going to go to a club. But in actuality, maybe having that party in the empty conference room that's just collecting dust, or in the parking lot, that's an idea we like to push a lot of business to think about, because then people remember that conference room not as the boring spot where I heard this boring PowerPoint. They remember it as, oh, this is a cool spot where I got to play giant Jenga or mini golf, or hang out for an hour and actually relax and meet some new people in the company and talk about some new ideas we maybe wouldn't have talked about before.
Yeah, you start associating fun with work. I mean, it starts to tie together. When we talk about examples, and you just named off a couple, but I want to dive in a little further into that. Sure. So we talk about generic work activities or a corporate event, and boy, you hit it on the head. I've done a lot of corporate events where I've been a participant, and you're right. These individuals, these top performers of this group start to nestle around one another. The executives kind of ring off to the side, and they have their little group, and you see the silos that are in the workplace transform and transfer right into this corporate event, and it is no different. So I love the idea of being able to have those shared activities, and you named off a couple, but let's harp a little bit more on that shared activity piece. Tell me a little bit about how those shared activity pieces come together. You gave a couple examples, but dive into the unwilling participants, and then of course getting those folks involved and trying to make those work successfully. Tell me a little bit about that, because that's the key. That's the key, right?
Yeah. So the first idea is we call it the middle school dance phenomenon a lot, right? Where everyone kind of goes to middle school dance and they all kind of hang around their same group of friends, and then nobody actually dances.
Yes.
That's a way a lot of Christmas parties end up that way, or holiday parties or summer barbecues, but that's just human nature. So you have to push against that a little bit. And we push against it by trying to find games that are really laid back, really inclusive, really low pressure. So think about kind of a traditional, kind of field day. If you think about like a tug of war, or like a sack race, and those are cool. And again, that's probably better than nothing. But we like to find stuff that's really, really simple. There's no athletic skill, even like softball and stuff like that. In some cases, when you're talking about a company that has people from 20 to 60 years old,
right?
We want to find the simplest stuff. So what's some good brain games where people are cooperating? We can form some teams, stuff like Giant Jenga, stuff like mini golf that harkens back to when you were a younger kid and maybe you were going out on a date when you were 17 to the miniature golf course.
Yeah.
We do inflatable darts. We do all kinds of fun stuff. Most time we customize it. And one of our favorite things to do is karaoke.
Mm-hmm.
And again, there's a couple of ideas there. The first idea is a lot of times you'll see this phenomenon that we've seen, a ton over the last, 15 or so years, is you'll see this idea of waking up a quiet giant, where somebody, is kind of shy and quiet in the office. And you've probably seen it before. Maybe your listeners have as well. And you go out to karaoke on a Friday or Saturday night and somebody just gets up and belts out that tune. And you're like, wow, like, where did that come from? And you probably never look at that person the same way again. So we just ran a karaoke Olympiad for a company, casino night and karaoke Olympiad in December. And, you're seeing these departments who are, singing together.
Mm-hmm.
That could be a pretty magical experience. And so again, just singing, is not, hopefully, it might be scary if you're singing by yourself, but if you're singing with 7 or 8 people in your department, if you're the procurement department or the marketing department, you're up there singing a song, like the science says that stuff matters. The science says singing along with somebody, Daniel Pink just has a great book out called When, that talks about, chorals and choral singing together.
Right.
It talks about all the neurological benefits of actually singing. But we've seen already the last years, not just finding kind of a quiet giant who's singing by themselves, but singing together. It can't get much simpler. Take all the skill and the cornhole and the ping pong out of it, and just sing with them. And again, I think what you see is kind of the traditional dynamic is, and again, nothing wrong with it. And one of our biggest, kind of, I wouldn't call it a pet peeve, but one of our biggest ideas, you could go online right now onto YouTube, and you could type in, employee appreciation event or
right.
employee morale day, and you can see videos of people dunking their boss in a dunk tank.
Uh-huh.
And look, I understand dunk tanks are part of Americana, right? It's
right.
The county fair, it's apple pie and baseball and corn on the cob and dunk tanks. But if you're talking about belonging and inclusiveness and connecting people, we've literally worked with companies in the past where it's like, hey, the CEO doesn't really want to come to the party. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, why is that? Are they an introvert? No, well, because last time we had a party, they were in a dunk tank and people were throwing stuff at them and taunting them. And it's like, man, I wonder why we have this kind of disconnect between the executives and the employees. Well, because instead of maybe dunking them in water and throwing stuff at them, maybe you could sing along with them. So, we run a karaoke Olympiad, and, the winners of the event, they pick the song, and the bosses, the executive team, and the employees are singing along together to finish the event. What a different way to look at the company party.
Yeah, totally different approach. I can see how this can definitely affect the bottom line for an organization. And as you guys have put on these events at FunCorp, tell me what's the impact after? I mean, I'm sure you talked about doing some follow-up questionnaires or surveys, and what are your clients at FunCorp telling you about the result after an event like this? So we have this type of event, we put it on, and what's coming at the organization behind those events?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully there's initially just a little bit of an afterglow of just having a successful event and party, as you probably know from your birthday party. But more specifically, I think there's a lot of small, subtle changes that companies will see. Somebody who kind of looked down when you walked past them in the hallway might strike up a random conversation with you. An interesting place to focus on might be, does your company have a social calendar? Does your company have where not where the company's saying you have to do this, but in other words, a lot of companies have a calendar on the wall or a calendar it's on the corporate intranet, and employees would put ideas into that calendar. And we've worked with companies where they're like, hey, that calendar was blank. It existed, but nobody was putting anything in it because nobody really was that interested in what other people were doing. And you throw this event, I mean, a tremendously funny story. We threw an event, and a small, again, not a huge company, 60, 70 people, they realized that 6 of the 60 people in the office are in a rock band. but they each have their own band, and they didn't even know it until
Wow.
we threw this karaoke Olympiad for them. And so what happens after the party? You have the 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. All of a sudden, people start putting stuff on the company calendar.
Mm-hmm.
People say, hey, why don't you come to my band? I'll come see your band. Hey, do you want to go do this activity with me? That kind of stuff, I think, is hard to measure, but
Right.
it's really subtle, but it's really, really valuable.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of those kinds of small tweaks and changes, I think, once you start the friend building process with a decent size event.
We've got audience members all over the country. Here I am listening to the whole concept of friend building, and I want more information. I want to reach out. I'll reach out to you. What can we expect?
Well, I mean, we're happy to help you activate an event. We've got a lot of partners across the country. We're happy to help educate your HR staff or help educate people who are in charge of fun, or your ambassadors of fun, so to speak, at your company.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe there's even some education or consulting we can do. But I would say to all those people listening, in some cases, one of the things we like the most is if you actually don't need us. Like, the question is, where can you start simply with friend building that's staring you right in the face?
Right.
That you're not going to need us, and you can start that process already. We have something called the friend wheel, which you can see more about on our website. Do you run a company golf tournament?
Right.
Do you have a Monday meeting, or do you have a happy hour? You can already bracket on. What are you already doing? You can bracket on a simple friend building idea. And the CEO and the executives can say, hey, we're going to play a game. We call it highs, lows, bet you didn't knows. Really simple.
Yeah.
You don't need us to do that. Right. We can tell you about that, but you can also just go on the website and learn about it. Right.
Sure.
But you don't need us to do that. But the executives and the boss taking interest in playing highs, lows, bet you didn't knows is big.
Yeah.
Taking that friend wheel out and saying, hey, the foursome for our normal annual company golf, charity tournament, hey, you're going to spin this friend wheel at the end, and we're going to ask you a question. And if you answer a question right about the person you were teamed up with, we're going to take a stroke off your score. That's really, really simple stuff that we've seen be really, really powerful and effective. And you can just probably bracket some of those ideas on to something you're already doing. Get a friend wheel, get an icebreaker like highs, lows, bet you didn't knows, figure out a way to have your own version of a karaoke Olympiad or a nudge talent show. And, find out those things about your employees that they really, really want to talk about. Interesting concept, right? Like,
yeah.
We talk a lot about, so we talked about the third phase of creating friends, which is, shared experiences. The fourth part is often called, vulnerability, secrets, like, hey, that's where you actually, you become good friends, if not great and mega friends, we call them.
Right.
But the idea is, can you look for happy vulnerability instead of, tragedy and sadness, which is there and might come out? Can you look for spots where there's happy vulnerability? We've got employees and they've got this one talent that's awesome, but it's never going to come out in the workplace. Maybe they make the best apple pie. Maybe they play the jazz harmonica. Maybe they're great at karaoke. Maybe they do a spot on impression of somebody. What are those nudge talents that your employees are just desperate to talk about and show you as the boss or the executive team, or even other employees and coworkers? But you just need to nudge that along. So you could run a nudge talent show. And instead of forcing people, to sing karaoke, maybe they don't like to sing, can you have a nudge talent show and say, hey, bring your best hidden talent to the table? And whatever that might be, maybe you just rock out on the guitar. Maybe you're great at playing, Miss Pac-Man, who knows?
Right.
Those kinds of simple ideas are going to start to change the culture of your office in ways that you probably won't notice at first, but you will notice eventually, and hopefully notice, in the bottom line.
Friend building, I tell you, what a great concept. How many organizations are just it's not even on their radar. So I really like the information. We always talk about on the Higher Up Show podcast, we always talk about dropping some great nuggets and information that an organization, certainly they can reach out to Sean and his folks at FunCorp, but you also can take some of the ideas he's laying it out for you folks. He's given you some ideas, some ways and things that you can do right in your own organization. And as he said, tacking on to what you're already doing. Sean, and wrapping up, I want to ask you just a couple of things in closing, and that is, First off, let everybody know your website and how would they reach out to you if they wanted to, whether it's to contract with your company, get advice from your company, or just talk with you in general. How would an organization reach out?
Sure, we're FunCorp. corp.biz. I wasn't awesome enough to get .com, but I am working on it. So, funcorp.biz, as in fun for your corporation or your business. So funcorp.biz. There's a quick quote form on there. If you want to fill it out, we'll happy to give your listeners a free 30-minute consult if they want to talk about their office culture or an upcoming event that they want a couple tips on.
Awesome.
But again, you talked about it. It's not that complicated. Friendships is a simple idea as old as time. And when I was in third grade and I was feeling sick, and mom was saying to me, hey, do you want to go to school? The reason why I decided to go to school or not wasn't because I was just dying to learn cursive. Yeah. The reason why I decided to go to school is because I was going to miss my friends.
Yeah.
And that idea is happening in your office right now, whether you know it or not.
That is a great correlation. Great correlation.
Yeah, people are deciding to leave for greener pastures or what they think is greener pastures. People are deciding, given rainy day in Seattle, hey, it's raining out and I feel ill in the weather. Should I come in and work on that product or not? The friendships are probably going to make the difference much more than any of the other big core values or goals or incentive plans or 401k plans or dental and health plans you have. Friendships always make the difference. So it's a simple idea, but it's something that in this crazy social media world almost gets lost, because the more social media we have, the less kind of actual natural friendships we have. And a lot of times people are spending more time at work than they are at home.
Yeah.
So the idea of having friendships in the office, while some bosses kind of see it as a dirty word or like the F word, it's actually might be that hidden idea that, it's going to connect a lot of other ideas for you. You're worried about productivity, problem solving, innovation, retention, and maybe spend a little bit of time on what your friend score is in your office and friend building. And maybe those other ideas might start to fall into place as well.
There you have it, folks. Sean Madden with FunCorp. Great concept, friend building. If you're not doing it in your organization, it's something that you really ought to take a hard look at. In fact, here at the assessment company, we're going to take a hard look at it in our organization as well, and certainly our staff here at the Hire Up podcast. And Sean, I want to just take a moment and thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day. I know you have a lot of balls in the air and a lot of juggling going on there. But I want to again thank you for being a part of the Hire Up podcast, and certainly as you have, I know you've got a lot of things going on, and you're going to continue to bring great content. So whenever you have something that you want to talk about and get out to the public, I want you to reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to have you on the show. You are a great guest, and we really appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Hey, thank you, and thank you for having us and letting us talk about a new idea that's actually quite old, and and then hopefully it helps out a lot of your listeners.
We appreciate you. And there you have it, folks. We're wrapping up Hire Up Podcast, and we know that you have a choice when you're tuning in to your content, and we want to thank you so much for choosing Hire Up Podcast. Everyone have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Hire Up with John Beck.
For show notes, updates, and more on how to break the code to unlocking occupational DNA,
join the community at hrhireup.com
and take your business to a higher level. This has been an exclusive production of SharperTalkMedia.com. Join the community.